morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to Global Atheist News Roundup, dateline 8th of February 2025. This week's headlines. A secretive Christian sect coerced young mothers to give up their babies. At 2 prayer breakfasts, Trump calls himself a champion of religion. Bangladesh cancels women's football matches. Former Archbishop of Canterbury Carey quits ministry. The Education Assembly Bill gets a second reading. And here is the news in detail. Women who were once members of a secretive Christian sect in the United States have told the BBC that they were coerced by their church into giving up their children for adoption. Some of the children who were adopted within the church have told us that they were then subjected to abuse and neglect in their adoptive families. The claim follows a BBC investigation last year into allegations of child sexual abuse spanning decades within the church, which is believed to have up to 100,000 members worldwide and is often referred to as the truth, or the 2x2s. The FBI has since launched an investigation. 4 women, who were all unmarried at the time, have told the BBC they were given no option but to give up their babies. 3 of them feared being cast out of the church and sent to hell if they refused. One says she was pressured into giving her baby to a married couple in the church after she was raped in 1988, aged 17. My fear of going to hell was so great that it forced me to make up my mind to give up the baby to this couple in the church, she told the BBC. Another says she wasn't allowed to see her baby daughter before the child was taken away forever. The adopted children, born all over the US, are referred to within the church as Baldwin babies because the adoptions were overseen by Wally Baldwin, a doctor from the sect who died in 2004. The exact number of Baldwin babies is unclear. One woman who was adopted recalled seeing hundreds of photos in an album Dr. Baldwin would keep of the children whose adoptions he had organized in The Truth. Another man who was adopted told us he had personally connected with more than 100 Baldwin babies and mothers. Most of the mothers the BBC spoke to believe the workers and The Truth as an institution should shoulder most of the responsibility for the trauma caused by the adoptions. Somewhere the church got off track and it became a fear-based cult, and I was forced to make a choice, says Melanie Williams, 62, who gave up her baby for adoption in January 1981. At 18, Melanie became pregnant after falling madly in love with a boy from her school. Not only were the pair unmarried, but the father was not a member of The Truth and refused to become one. This meant Melanie had committed a terrible sin in the eyes of local workers. The workers and her family decided that she could only continue to attend church meetings if she gave her baby to another family in the sect. If I keep this baby, I'm going to hell. If I keep the baby, I can't go home, Melanie recalls thinking. She gave birth in a Catholic hospital in Oklahoma, where she was discreetly put in a room on her own. She remembers being shouted at by a doctor when she began to cry during labor. Melanie's baby was whisked away before it made a sound, and she says she didn't know whether she'd had a boy or a girl. The new mother was left wondering if her child might be dead. Of the 6 Baldwin babies who spoke to the BBC, 2 faced sexual, physical and emotional abuse in their adoptive families, while one said she had been subjected to emotional abuse by her adoptive father. One woman said she was removed from her first adoptive home by social services because of the extreme physical abuse and was placed in the home of a church elder, a person of seniority who holds meetings in their own home, and his wife. She said the couple started sexually abusing her within weeks when she was 15. Another woman said she was beaten by her adoptive parents on a daily basis and sexually abused by an uncle in her adoptive family when she was 5. Since reports of widespread child sexual abuse started spreading within the church 2 years ago, former and current members have started connecting in Facebook groups, including Baldwin babies and their mothers. Appearing at 2 events on Thursday, February the 6th, both of them part of the festivities surrounding the National Prayer Breakfast, President Donald Trump spoke about the centrality of religious belief to the United States and announced that he would create a new presidential commission on religious liberty. From the earliest days of our republic, faith in God has always been the ultimate source of the strength that beats in the hearts of our nation, Trump said in his first appearance in front of a gathering of lawmakers in the U.S. Capitol's Statuary Hall. We have to bring religion back. We have to bring it back much stronger. Later, at a separate NPB gathering in the Washington Hilton Hotel, Trump announced he would appoint Florida pastor Paula White to lead his White House Faith Office, as she did at the end of the first Trump administration. Trump did not give any other details about the commission other than saying it's going to be a very big deal, which will work tirelessly to uphold this most fundamental right. Unfortunately, in recent years, we've seen the sacred liberty threatened like never before in American history. The president also said he will create a task force, which will be overseen by Attorney General Pam Bondi, that will eradicate anti-Christian bias, making good on a promise he made on the campaign trail. Bangladesh cancelled a district-level women's friendly football match. A student-led protest vandalised the venue subsequently. See this video.
Bangladesh has been through a turbulent year. Protests erupted across the entire country. Rage grew against the Prime Minister, who was forced to flee and take refuge. And they are barely recovering from months of political turmoil. The latest incident has brought sharp focus back on the divisiveness and hatred that seems to be fueling Bangladeshis. A women's district-friendly football match in the northwestern city of Joypurhat was cancelled. A student-led protest from a traditional religious school damaged the venue where the local side was hosting a team from Rangpur city. The reason behind the protest, the students say women playing football is un-Islamic.
The Islamists in our area gathered in a field and marched toward the venue. There were hundreds of them. The situation worsened and we had to cancel today's event.
But the leader of the violent protest was not the students. They were only acting on instructions. They were mere protesters following the commands of the headmaster of the school, Abu Bakr Siddiqui.
Girls' football is un-Islamic. It is our religious duty to stop anything that goes against our beliefs.
School headmasters set principles. They established the value system for students to follow. The very people who go on to form a significant part of a country's future. It's the headmaster who helps students decide what's the right from the wrong. The headmaster here feels that it is his religious duty to stop women's football because it goes against religious principles. What's concerning is that this isn't the only instance of a women's football match getting cancelled in the country. Just a day earlier, another game was delayed indefinitely, this in the nearby city of Dinajpur. A similar demonstration took place where protesters forced the match to be cancelled just half hour before kickoff. And what's worse, the protest was not a peaceful one. 4 people got injured in the tussle. 2 incidents in 2 days spells out clearly that sentiments against women footballers is only intensifying in this country.
Former Archbishop of Canterbury, George Carey, has quit his service as a Church of England priest after a BBC investigation revealed he had advocated for an alleged child abuser to return to the priesthood. David Tudor was banned by the church for 5 years in the 1980s over allegations of assault against teenage girls, but Lord Carey later allowed him to return under supervision. Tudor was only sacked as a priest in October last year after admitting sexual misconduct. In his resignation letter, in which he surrendered his permission to officiate, Lord Carey said it had been an honour to serve for more than 60 years. The 89-year-old was named in the investigation into disgraced priest Tudor, who was found, among other things, to have been barred by the church from being alone with children. The church told the BBC that in 1993, Lord Carey, who was then Archbishop of Canterbury, agreed Tudor could return from suspension under supervision, and that the decision was taken with some trepidation. But the investigation found evidence suggesting Lord Carey helped Tudor get a job. Minutes of a meeting mentioning him advocating for Tudor, with a reference that a diocese had been made to take the disgraced priest. More than that, leaked documents also show he agreed to remove Tudor's name from the central list of clergy who had been subject to disciplinary action. We recognise these procedures were neither sufficient nor survivor-focused, and that very different decisions would have been made today, the Church told the BBC, acknowledging that Tudor should have received a lifetime ban. Lord Carey, in his resignation letter, wrote, "I wish to surrender my permission to officiate." And the current Archbishop of York, Stephen Cotterill, is resisting calls to resign in relation to the same investigation. Liberal Democrat peer Baroness Burt of Solihull gave the second reading of her bill to revise school assemblies. She said, "My Lords, I am humbled to introduce this bill in your Lordship's house. I am grateful to all noble lords who have joined us today. I declare my interest as Vice Chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Humanist Group and put on record my thanks to Humanists UK as the Secretariat that helped me bring forward the bill and to the National Secular Society. More than 3 years ago, I first stood in this chamber to put forward the same bill. Back then, it passed through the Lords, but fell out in the other place due to lack of time. I'm also grateful to the noble Baroness Lady Meacher, who put forward an amendment to introduce inclusive assemblies to the schools bill in 2022. So this is a bill whose time has come. The UK is the only Western democracy that legally imposes worship in publicly funded schools. Sections 70 and 71 of the Schools Standards and Framework Act require all state schools that are not of a religious nature already to hold daily acts of collective worship that must be of a wholly or mainly Christian character. The bill seeks to reform assemblies in schools without a religious character to make sure they include all children and contribute to their spiritual, moral, social and cultural development. In my opinion, school assemblies can be a good thing. They should foster a sense of community and promote the moral and social development of pupils, but that is not what is happening in many schools today, because the required religious aspect means that many children are withdrawn from assemblies, often to be left in corridors or classrooms, excluded from their peers and without any meaningful equivalent activity, which can make a child feel excluded and different. some non-Christian children will feel pressurized to attend just to fit in. The bill would not end assemblies in schools, rather it would require schools to hold assemblies focused on the spiritual, moral, social and cultural development of all children. The British Social Attitude Survey consistently shows that around half of British adults say they belong to no religion, and that more than 60% do not identify as Christian. Of those aged 18 to 24, 68% say they are non-religious versus 18% saying they are Christian. Parents welcome the bill. A 2019 YouGov poll asked parents to rank a list of 13 possible activities that could take place in a school assembly, and they ranked collective worship last. In fact, more than half said that religious worship was not an appropriate activity. Instead, in front of religious worship, they ranked the environment, nature, physical and mental health, the celebration of achievements, equality and non-discrimination, charity and volunteering, relationships and self-esteem, exploration of moral and ethical issues, humanitarian issues, historical events, art and culture, education about religions and beliefs, and politics and government. In my opinion, and in that of these children's parents, those are topics we should be covering in assemblies. Parents are right that worship is not appropriate. It does not uphold children's rights under the Human Rights Acts 1998 and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Younger children also have the right to freedom of religion or belief, and this right is not respected if religious worship is imposed on them. Accordingly, the United Nations Children's Rights Committee has for years called for the repeal of the UK's compulsory worship laws, and did so again in 2023. Moreover, a recent poll of school leaders found that 70% opposed collective worship and only 12% supported the current law. Unfortunately, without government backing, the bill will not become an act. Following this news, Freethought Hour's guest this week is Nuria Khan, owner of the Holy Humanist channel. You can join Tercia and I chatting with her by text. This has been Global Atheist News. Please like, subscribe and share. Thank you for watching.